we have any NFL fans in the audience? Anyone a fan of American football? Yeah, well, something that I found very interesting about Tim, something that I got to say I was a little bit impressed with, is that Tim played a lot of American football in high school, and at one point he got completely laid out by a man who went on to become a professional offensive lineman in the Green Bay Packers and won a Super Bowl. So our speaker once got tackled by a guy who won a Super Bowl. You do not get much more VIP than that. But I think I've said more than enough. Please help me to give a very warm New Zealand welcome to our incredible speaker, Tim Glemkowski.
Dude, my walkout music is awesome. Sam Brebner, huh? I want to be that guy when I grow up. How's everybody doing tonight? All right, it's good to see you, or to kind of see you. I mostly just see a lot of lights and like a few faces in the front row. But it's a super huge honor to be with you guys tonight, and to have already been welcomed a little bit by you and my family as well. It's been a huge joy. I've been trying not to geek out too much about like my Lord of the Rings stuff. I think every time we like pass a hill, I'm like, Maggie, do you think like that's where like Frodo grew up and stuff? Like, no, Tim, I don't think that's where Frodo grew up. So she made me take off my Hobbit feet before we came up here. She said the kids would think that I was lame. So you know, you have her to thank for that. But yeah, so we come all the way. I don't know how much you know about the States, but I grew up in an area called, near a city called Chicago. So we're most famous for the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. So growing up in the 1990s, I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. And so yeah, we came and flew all the way out and got in yesterday, and it's just been amazing. We've had a really good time already, just kind of getting to know people, and everyone's like really nice, like too nice. Like I'm waiting for kind of like the other foot to drop and everyone to just be like, actually, welcome to New Zealand. You know what I mean? Like, like I think this is just all like an elaborate ruse that we're never gonna make it out of here alive. So, but yeah, it's awesome to be with you guys this weekend and to get to. I'm gonna be here like you're gonna hear a lot from me, and so we're gonna get to know each other very well. And I just want you to really have a powerful weekend. To have a really good, I want to be a part of that. Like my job is really, not to necessarily introduce you to me, but to introduce you to a friend of mine, the Lord. And I don't really know, kind of coming into this weekend, like where you're at, in terms of the faith. Like I saw a lot of hands raised for even that this is your first time maybe at SetFree, and this might even be your first like time kind of doing something church related. Like maybe you're not even necessarily part of a youth group, or like all you really know about church is like you learn about religion at your school, and you maybe go to church like sometimes on Sundays like with your family and stuff, or maybe not very much at all. But kind of wherever you're at, like what I want you to know first and foremost is like you belong here. Like you belong here. Like you are meant to be here. Like no matter where you're at. Like if you're the kid, this is your 11th time here, and like as soon as the music came up, like you were already in a sprinter stance at the back, like to get to the front of the stage, so you can hang out. Like if you're that kid, or like if you're the kid who's just like, I don't even really know why I'm here. I'm not even sure I necessarily want to be here. Like I'm really regretting that whatever decision, whatever moment of insanity led me to like get in somebody's car and come all the way down here. Like wherever you're at along that whole spectrum, like you belong here. You're supposed to be here. Jesus Christ says, you didn't choose me, I chose you. Like Christ invited you here. And so I want you to know right away as we kick things off, like there's something for you in this weekend. Again, no matter where you're at, if you're like the best kid, like you've never, to your knowledge, committed not even just a mortal sin, but a venial sin in your entire life, or if like you're the kid who's like, I think this place might burn down if I walk into it. Like, are they gonna allow me into church things? Like, do they know who I am? Like, whatever you're at, like there's something for you this weekend. Like Christ wants to give you something. He wants to bring you into something different and new. And we need that. So when I was growing up, I was part of a really Catholic family. Like where I grew up in Chicago, everyone is either Irish or Italian, like their ancestry, their heritage, or Polish like me. And so basically like everybody's Catholic. Like everybody, you know what I mean? Like everybody like went to a church growing up and like there's like Catholic high schools just everywhere and stuff. And so I grew up in this very Catholic family. Where both of my parents were Catholic, and we have 6 brothers and sisters. I have 6 brothers and sisters, which is how you know we're Catholic, right? And like, we were the kind of family, like we prayed the rosary at night as like a whole family sometimes and stuff, which is like to this day I get like flashbacks, like #triggered when I think about it. Like, and if you had asked me at the time like how long I thought it took to pray a rosary, like I would have said like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 hours, like more, just, so this is like, but like the faith, it was part of my experience growing up. It was just like part of our life. It was a big thing for us. But I think in a lot of ways, like I just experienced even my Catholic upbringing is kind of like baggage for me. I just didn't like that it seemed like I felt a little bit guiltier when I did bad things than like some of my friends did, right? Because we were from such a Catholic family. And I made a very kind of intentional decision. I grew up going to public schools. I didn't go to Catholic schools until this is a true story. My parents had me go to, we call it high school. All right, you guys call it high school too, right? Like, you know what I mean when I'm saying that? Like from the time I was like 14 to 18, I was at a Catholic high school, and my parents actually made me go to a Catholic high school because I was getting into so much trouble in the public school that they were like, all right, maybe this will fix him, Tim, you need Jesus, so like, you need to go to Catholic school. And so I went to this Catholic school, and in that transition, like I had a lot of really good friends at this public school, and I didn't know anybody going to the Catholic school at all, and it seemed like everybody knew each other, and they'd all been like baptized in the same holy water font and everything. I was like, I don't know anybody. And so I made this very intentional decision going into high school that like I was kind of done with the faith. Like I'd been confirmed, I'd kind of had like checked all my boxes. I felt like I knew a lot of like the answers. If you asked me some of the books of the Bible, I probably could have told you at least like 1 or 2. And I felt like I was kind of good with that, and it didn't really like need to be a big part of my life anymore. And so, for the most part during my high school years, I just kind of like left my faith to the side, kind of just left it at the door. I don't think I even necessarily really stopped believing in God. Like, I think if you had asked me, I would have said something like really spiritual, like, yeah, I believe there's a higher power, like something kind of like along those lines. But I wouldn't have necessarily, so I don't know if I stopped believing, but I certainly wasn't living the faith, right? Anything my parents were making me do was kind of the extent of my practicing Catholicism. But outside of that, it had really no bearing on my life. What I was kind of interested in were 3 things in this order: beer, girls, football, right? Like I was a very, well-rounded individual, just a real winner, you saw my wife. My wife is beautiful. Like the greatest miracle that's ever happened in my life is the fact that she said yes to marrying me. Like I'm just the biggest, yeah. Maggie. Can everyone understand me all right too? I told Maggie, I was like, we talk fast in Chicago, and like I know I have an accent. I'm like, I hope like they can I'm just gonna go for it and see if you guys can follow. So it's good. So I'll keep that in mind. But so yeah, just kind of like just very much so into like just kind of a very, I don't know if to use the word, like a very sinful lifestyle, like living very far away personally from the Lord. And I remember I would actually like my mom would talk me into coming to like a festival, a conference like this, or going on a retreat maybe with the youth group at my parish. And I kind of always remember like there was just something, sometimes it was nice to meet different people, but I think often like in those gatherings, I just felt kind of like on the outside. Like there was something everybody else just kind of got, like that they were real excited about, that they were really connected with. And I think like in a lot of ways, it just made me feel sometimes like kind of worse about myself, Like I just kind of couldn't wait to like get back to my friends after the weekend and my lifestyle and to just kind of like, get away. Like I just really wanted to get away from the faith. But here's the thing, like when we do that, we don't stop being a human. Like, just because we try to push away questions about the faith or questions about who God is, it doesn't stop the fact that we remain human. And to be human is to ask questions, to long for answers. And sometimes in our lives, like, we're way too busy to really, like, ask those questions seriously of ourselves or give ourselves the space to really, like, reflect on some of the deeper things of life, but they kind of sit within us. Like, there's this kind of longing or restlessness or just, discomfort where it's like we want these answers to these questions. We ask questions all the time, like on any given day, right? Like, what am I going to wear? Or like, how am I going to get to school? Or like, do I need to punch someone in class? Like, I don't know, like all the questions that you ask on a given day, right? But there are deeper questions that like constantly are a part of our interior life that like need addressing. Like that's what distinguishes us, which makes us different as humans. Like, we are the way we are because we wrestle with these questions. Where do I come from? What's the point of my life? Where am I going? What happens after I die? Am I lovable? Does anyone care? Does my life matter at all anyway? And as long as these questions remain fundamentally unanswered in our heart, we will experience restlessness. And so for me as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, like I was doing my best to just shut down those questions in my heart and in my mind, but unsuccessfully, right? No one can. And so they remained within me, even though I felt like I had everything. My crowning achievement in high school. They do these things we get these yearbooks at the end of the school year where like you have all your pictures, all your class pictures in them and stuff. And, I would always kind of just like show up and be like, oh no, it's picture day. And like the girls had it on their calendar from like a month and a half out, like that day, And my crowning achievement from high school was I was voted in our yearbook as a senior as class clown. I was like, I've made it. This is the height of success, like nothing greater than this can be achieved in life. But, so I had it all. I had it made, right? But for me, like, even though it was like all these things that I felt like I was being told by the world that I was supposed to chase, like just like getting that girl to like me and to want to hook up with me, like that was going to somehow solve the aching longing in my heart. Or like just having that like 9th beer at that party, like that was just going to solve the aching in my heart. Or like, getting better grades and achieving in school so I could get into a good college and get a good job. Like that was going to fill the longing in my heart. And I was just diving headlong into all the things that the world told me were going to actually fill my heart, fix my life. And in some strange way, like the more I poured myself into those things, I didn't find my thirst or my hunger, my desire for happiness getting satisfied at all. And in fact, it just kept getting worse. The restless in me kept getting more and more empty. I started liking myself less. And so it brought me to a moment where on a retreat, on a conference just like this, there was a single moment in prayer where I finally kind of opened up to the possibility that like God might contain some of those answers. That like maybe there was something more to this that like I hadn't really looked into. And in a moment I just kind of gave him permission. I just said like, God, if you're real, if this is actually a thing, like show me. Because growing up, like to me, Catholicism was at best like boring and at worst untrue. And either way it was irrelevant for my life. Because what could a man who lived 2,000 years ago have to say to my life? When I'm hearing these stories on Sunday, they're about things that happened 3,000 years ago. Like, what does that have to do with me today? And everything about church and like I said, the rosary and just the whole experience of it, like it just felt like, answers I had to spit back out on a test and an hour every week that I needed to just kind of sit and try to be quiet and just count the seconds until the priest's homily was over, right? And at worst, like, what if it wasn't true? But in that moment, like, there was a desperation in me, like a willingness to say, like, I need something. My life needs an answer. There's an emptiness in me that nothing in this world can seem to satisfy. And maybe there's an answer outside of it. And so I just opened up to God, and in that moment experienced and encountered God's love for me. And it changed everything. Like that moment, I'm gonna talk more about that tomorrow, but like that moment is why I'm here today. I think God has something for you this weekend. I think God might have something for you this weekend. You know, there's this great story in Luke's gospel. So our theme, Be Not Afraid, is taken from the beginning of Luke's gospel. And then at about chapter 5, Jesus is finally just starting his public ministry. So he's just going out and getting the band together, you know. One of my favorite movies from the 90s. Has anyone seen the movie Mighty Ducks 2? Any hands? Thank you. You guys are amazing. It's like the thing in the beginning of the movie where like they're getting all the guys together and like the teams are being assembled and like they're all kind of gathering everyone, and this is kind of what Jesus is doing. And so he's walking in a town, in a small town in Galilee, and he notices that there's 2 boats that are just kind of lying on the shore there, and there's this huge crowd following him, and he doesn't know how to preach to them all. And so he gets in one of the boats and just says to the fishermen, "Can you put out a little bit of distance from the shore so that I can talk to everybody?" And this fisherman's name is Simon. And so Simon says, like, all right, sure. You know, he's kind of tired. He'd been up all night fishing, but he says, fine. He kind of pushes off from the shore, just a short distance. Just a short distance. And Jesus from there begins to preach and teach to the crowd. There's thousands of people just like lining the shore, right? And when he's done preaching, Jesus turns to the owner of this boat, this guy named Simon, and he says to him, I want you to put out your nets into the deep water for a catch. And Simon says to him, you know, hey, buddy, like, we've been fishing all night, and we haven't caught anything. Like, he's kind of saying to him, like, I know how to do this. You know, I don't know a lot, but I know how to do this, and I'm telling you, like, there are no fish there. There's nothing there. But he says, kind of in that moment, and he's thinking too, like, I don't know, what are people going to think? You know, there's thousands of people lining the shore. He's got these big nets sitting in his boat. He's been fishing all night. This is not the time of day you fish. This is not the place you fish. Like, if he just kind of throws his net over, like, people are going to think, like, what's going on with this guy? You know? What's he thinking? But he kind of in that moment has a decision to make. You know, am I gonna listen to Jesus or not? And so he throws his nets over the side of the boat, and more fish come up than they know what to do with. Just they're pulling the nets up, and they actually can't do it, so they call over some of the friends who you can imagine were probably like laughing a second before, you know? Oh man, you threw your nets in, like, you know, good one. And now they actually have to come over and help him pull in all of the fish that he catches. And when they get all the fish finally in and they get to shore, you would expect that this Simon would be like overjoyed, like he just made like a lot of money. I mean, this is his business, right? Like he just made you'd think he'd be like so excited. But in that moment, he just kind of kneels down before Jesus and he just says, "Depart from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." Because you see, he knows what Jesus did. He recognizes the point of that story. Jesus wasn't just trying to make him a buck that day. Jesus was using this encounter, this moment to encounter Simon personally. It wasn't about the fish. Jesus had him put out a short distance just to get into the boat. Jesus got you here, right? You didn't choose me, I chose you. And in that moment, once he has him in the boat and Jesus has gotten into his space, into his livelihood, into the thing that he knows, into the thing he puts his identity in, Jesus is able to say to him, now I want you to put out your nets into the deep. Because in the deep, there's risk. And wherever there's risk, there's also fear. And Peter in that moment is afraid. But he trusts Jesus enough to do it, to take that risk. You know, my friends and I, when I was in college at university, we would, one of our favorite things to do, I lived over there one summer, and we were super bored all the time because it was, there was like nothing to do. And so we started like looking for things to do in this area, and we were in this area that had a lot of small towns, and one of our favorite things to do, and I was a trained professional. Don't do this at home. But there were a bunch of cliffs like over this river near where we kind of went to school, maybe like a 15, 20-minute drive back into the deeps. And these cliffs were kind of at different like increments, 15, 20 feet, 25 feet. And there was one kind of huge one, like the Big Mama, that was like, really high. I mean, just like a jump, I was trying to do the math in my head into meters, but I can't. It's just like, it was like 50 feet. This just really big jump. Like at that point, you could really get kind of hurt, if things didn't go well. And we'd go all summer, and I would just do like the little 15-foot jump and the little kind of like the 20-foot, like get a little rush and, kind of just like hit the water and come up and have fun with it. But this one time we went out there, and my buddy was like, hey, I'm going to do the big one. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go with you. And we walked up to the ledge, and there were a group of maybe 5 of us that got up there. And I can tell you, like, when I was looking over that ledge, like staring down at the water below me, like your stomach is just turning over because it's so high up. And I remember like standing up there, and there were actually a couple people with us who kind of like looked at it and were just kind of like, nope, no thank you, and just like walked all the way back down. Like I'm just not going to do it. But in that moment, like that's kind of imagine how I feel like Peter probably felt. You know what I mean? And in order to jump off that ledge, like at a certain point, I just kind of had to let my feet take me and just kind of go. And I think Peter probably had to do the same thing in that moment with Jesus. Just kind of like stop thinking, stop worrying, stop being afraid. Like, what are other people going to think? Like, how's my life going to change? How's this going to ruin my plans? Like what I wanted to do? I'm building a fishing business here. And at some point, he just had to say, like knowing what Jesus was doing, like, all right, I'm in. I'm gonna throw my nets in and kind of see what you can do from there. Just give my little yes, and then let you kind of take me the rest of the way. And immediately he's struck with that feeling of like, he knows he's been chosen. He knows he's been chosen. I think God has something for you this weekend. I don't think he would have brought you here. I don't think it's any accident. Every single one of you. I don't think it's any accident that you're here. I think God has something for you. So kind of the question that sits in front of us then, as we kind of kick off the weekend, is like, what are you afraid of? Like, because you and I know that there's things in your life, because I know that there are things in my life still, like places in my heart that like, I just don't want God to go into. Like, I just don't want to be that Catholic. You know what I mean? I just don't want to I don't want to let the Lord into every area of my life. I don't want to give over everything that I am. I don't want to surrender all my plans and everything that I want. Because I fundamentally don't necessarily trust that he's going to take care of me. That he's going to make me happy. And what are people going to think? What are you afraid of? My daughter, Eva, she's 2.5. And when we flew in, we got off our long flight and the plane kind of bounced and it really freaked her out for a second. Like she really got kind of scared and was kind of crying. I wanted to crawl up into her mom's arms. And then we got out to the car and, you guys, I was going to say you guys drive on the wrong side of the road, but we drive on the wrong side of the road. You guys are amazing. So we drive on the wrong side of the road. And so she got into the car, and it actually like really freaked her out. Like she was like crying. She was like, I'm not going in that car. And we were kind of like, we couldn't figure it out. We were like, this is a nice car. Like this is a better car than our car. Like, I don't know. And she kept saying, I want our Jeep. And we're like, this is a better car than your Jeep. Your Jeep smells funny. So this is, like, you really want this car. And she just did not like it at all. And we finally realized, like, the reason she didn't like it was because, like, Dad was sitting in the wrong seat. Like, she has kind of her thing, and this is where my car seat goes, and Dad is there, and Mom is there, and everything's safe, right? And it freaked her out, that change. She, like, didn't know what to do with it. And so she's been, like, all weekend, when we try to get her in the car, like, it's been scaring her. It's completely irrational. Don't be afraid to open wide the doors of your heart to Jesus Christ. God made you. God loves you. He knows what you need. Like, don't be afraid this weekend to let God do something in your life. We got a long weekend ahead of us, and so I don't want to but all I want you to do at this moment is just to kind of let you know, wherever you're coming in, whatever fears are on your heart about this weekend, I'm inviting you to just give those to God. Maybe they're real. Maybe they're fears about different struggles and difficulties that are in your life. Or different areas of suffering, like pain that you've experienced, and you've kind of wondered where God has been in them, and you're afraid to open back up your heart because you don't want to be hurt again. Or maybe you're just afraid of what people are going to think. But kind of what I'm inviting you to do is with my daughter, Eva, just kind of hand over your fears at the beginning of this weekend. Because fear is the great immobilizer. Fear is the great immobilizer. What fear is really good at getting us to do is just staying put where it's comfortable. But you weren't made for comfortable. God made you for great things. He made you to be happy, not just comfortable. Mom and dad and me, and this is my car seat. And God made you for greatness. So what we're going to do is we're actually about to enter into a little bit of a time of worship, and really what I'm inviting you to do is let's take this time, make this a real intentional time to intentionally hand over our fears to God. And maybe what that means for you first is just recognizing what fear is in your heart, just admitting that it's there. Yeah, I really care what people think about me. And I don't think, God, I'm afraid that if I give my life to you, if I really, want you in my boat, if I want you in my space, if I really try to start living a life with you, I'm afraid what people are going to think. Whatever it is, wherever you're at, I'm just inviting you to let's take this time and make it about inviting Christ into those places of fear. So if you can actually just join me and stand, and we're gonna pray. God, we give you this time. Whatever it is that's on our mind, that we're worried about, that we're anxious about, whatever we've left at home, whatever we think we need to be focused on, we just hand that over to you. Jesus, we want to be emptied. And we recognize that in calling us here this weekend, you've stepped into our boat, you've stepped into our space, and we're afraid. We're not sure we want that even all the time. But God, we're open. We're open. You know how we've been toiling all night, just fishing, coming up empty, throwing in net after net into the same areas to try to find fulfillment and happiness, and just coming up empty. And you've watched where that's left us. And so God, we're open to something new. We're open to you showing us something different. We're open to you showing us what one crazy moment of courage, of just swallowing hard and jumping can do for our lives. Jesus, we don't want to be afraid. In fact, we give you our fear. We just place it in your hands. We ask you to make us new and send out your Holy Spirit.